My name is Erica, and I'm about to tell you the story that changed everything I thought I knew about loyalty, family, and the man I trusted with my life every single day. 3 years. 3 years I had trusted Derek completely. Until one conversation with my best friend made me question everything. If this story grabs you like it grabbed me that night, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next on Formidable Revenge channel. I built my empire from nothing after my husband died. 20 companies across Atlanta, a mansion in Buckhead, and respect that came with blood, sweat, and pure determination. People called me the Iron Lady of Georgia business. I earned every dollar, every title, and every ounce of fear and admiration that came with my name. But none of that prepared me for what I discovered about the one man I thought I could trust completely. Derek had been my driver for 3 years. Tall, disciplined, and silent as a church mouse. He drove my black Mercedes with precision, never gossiped with the staff, never lingered after dropping me off. I respected his professionalism. In a world full of people trying to get close to my money, Derek kept his distance. He was exactly what I needed. But that evening, everything changed. My best friend Isabella was visiting, sipping wine in my living room when she leaned forward with that look, the one that meant trouble was coming. "Erica, honey, I don't trust your driver." I nearly choked on my champagne. "Derek?" "Isabella, the man has never stolen so much as a paperclip from me." "What are you talking about?" She adjusted her silk scarf, lowering her voice. "Listen, girl, in this city, it's always the person you least expect who sells you out. Rich women like us? We're walking targets. And that man of yours, he disappears the second he drops you off. Never talks to security, never hangs around. Where does he go in such a hurry?" The words hit me like ice water. I set down my glass, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse. Isabella was right about one thing: Derek always left immediately. No small talk, no waiting around. Just "Good night, Ms. Montgomery," and he was gone. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, though my heart was already racing. "Kidnapping rings, Erica. They plant people inside wealthy households. Drivers, maids, gardeners. They study your routines, your security, your weaknesses. Then when you least expect it." She drew her finger across her throat. The room suddenly felt cold despite the Georgia heat outside. I thought about Derek's behavior. The way he gripped the steering wheel during our drives. The distant look in his eyes when he thought I wasn't watching. The way he never answered his phone while driving, never seemed to have friends or family to talk about. "Isabella, you're scaring me." "Good. Fear keeps you alive, honey. Too many wealthy women have been set up by their own staff. If he's hiding something, you need to find out before it's too late." That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my bedroom, replaying every interaction with Derek. Every quick departure. Every moment when he seemed lost in thought. By morning, I had made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I was going to follow him. The next evening, I prepared like I was going to war. I had my security team bring out the gray BMW I rarely used. Dark clothes, a baseball cap, and sunglasses to hide my face. As Derek drove me home in the Mercedes and parked in the circular driveway, I pretended to go inside. But the moment his taillights disappeared through my gates, I was behind the wheel of the BMW, following at a distance. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. Erica Montgomery, CEO of a business empire, reduced to stalking her own employee through the streets of Atlanta. But I had to know the truth. Where Derek was leading me would shatter everything I thought I knew about loyalty, family, and the secrets people keep to survive. The Atlanta traffic was brutal, even at 8 p.m. Cars honked, motorcycles weaved between lanes, and I fought to keep Derek's Honda Civic in sight while staying far enough back to avoid detection. My heart hammered against my ribs as I navigated through the maze of brake lights and aggressive drivers. Derek drove like a man with no secrets, calm, steady, following every traffic rule. He wasn't looking over his shoulder or taking evasive routes like someone running from something. If anything, this felt like routine to him. That should have calmed me, but somehow it made everything worse. My phone buzzed. Isabella calling. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't afford any distractions now. We left the affluent neighborhoods of Buckhead behind, passing through Midtown, then deeper into areas I'd never had reason to visit. The buildings grew older, the streets narrower. Pawn shops and check-cashing stores replaced the boutiques and wine bars I was used to. This wasn't where I expected Derek to live, and it definitely wasn't where I'd expect him to meet with criminals. A city bus cut me off, and for a terrifying moment I lost sight of Derek's car. Panic shot through me as I craned my neck, searching through the bus windows. Then I spotted him turning right onto a side street. I followed, my BMW feeling conspicuous among the older cars parked along the road. The neighborhood was rough but not dangerous, just tired. Chain link fences surrounded small houses with peeling paint. Children's toys scattered across tiny front yards. Working-class families trying to make ends meet. Nothing sinister about it, which somehow made Derek's presence here even more mysterious. His car slowed, then pulled into the driveway of a small house with faded blue shutters. The grass was brown, the concrete steps cracked, but someone had tried to maintain it. A few potted plants by the front door, a wind chime hanging from the porch. I parked 3 houses down, slumping low in my seat. Through my tinted windows, I watched Derek get out carrying a white plastic bag, the kind you get from a pharmacy. He didn't look around suspiciously. He just walked up to the front door like he belonged there. The door opened before he could knock. My breath caught in my throat. A woman appeared, thin, tired-looking, wearing a faded floral dress. She couldn't have been older than 40, but life had worn her down. When she saw Derek, her whole face lit up with relief and gratitude. She opened the door wider, and he stepped inside. Through the front window, I could see them moving around inside. Derek handed her the bag, and she clutched it to her chest like it contained gold. Then a child ran into view, a little boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. He threw his arms around Derek's legs, and Derek lifted him up, spinning him around. The scene was so tender, so familial, that I felt like an intruder watching through their window. This wasn't a criminal meeting. This wasn't a kidnapping plot. This was Derek visiting what looked like his family. But if they were his family, why had he never mentioned them? In 3 years, he'd never taken a personal call, never asked for time off for family events, never even mentioned having people who depended on him. I sat in my car, confusion replacing fear. The woman was clearly sick. I could see it in the way she moved, the way Derek held her arm to steady her. The child clung to Derek like he was his whole world. And Derek, the quiet professional man who drove me around Atlanta every day, was gentle and caring in ways I'd never seen. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered. "Erica, where are you? I've been worried sick." "Isabella," I whispered, not taking my eyes off the house. "I think we were wrong about Derek." "What do you mean? Did you follow him?" "Yes, and..." I paused, watching Derek help the woman sit down while the little boy climbed onto his lap. "I think he's been taking care of someone. A sick woman and a child." But even as I said it, questions burned in my mind. Why keep them secret? Why never mention them? And why did something about this whole situation feel like there was still more to uncover? The answer would come sooner than I expected, and it would leave me questioning everything I thought I knew about my family's past. I spent the next hour watching Derek through that window, my heart breaking with each tender moment. He fed the little boy, helped the woman take her medication, and read to the child from a worn picture book. When the woman started coughing violently, Derek rushed to get her water, supporting her frail body with such gentleness that tears started flowing down my cheeks. This was not the behavior of a criminal. This was love in its purest form. But questions still burned in my mind. Who were these people? Why hide them from me? In 3 years, Derek had been the picture of professionalism, but he'd also been completely closed off about his personal life. Now I was seeing why. The lights in the house went out around 10 p.m. Derek emerged, looking tired but peaceful. I ducked lower as he got into his car and drove away. I waited 10 minutes, then followed at a safe distance until he reached his apartment complex in East Atlanta. Nothing suspicious there either, just a man going home after visiting people he clearly loved. I drove back to my mansion with more questions than answers. The next morning, I couldn't concentrate on anything. Board meetings, phone calls, contract reviews, everything felt meaningless compared to what I'd witnessed. By afternoon, I'd made another decision. I called Derek to my private office. He entered, neat and professional as always, but I noticed something I'd missed before. There were dark circles under his eyes, a weight in his shoulders that spoke of burdens carried alone. "Derek, sit down." He hesitated. "Ma'am, you don't usually ask me to sit." "Sit down." He obeyed, his hands clasped in his lap, his expression carefully neutral. I took a deep breath. "I followed you yesterday." His eyes widened, then quickly looked down. The color drained from his face. "I saw where you went. I saw the woman. I saw the child. And now I want the truth. Who are they?" For a long moment, Derek said nothing. His jaw worked like he was fighting some internal battle. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with pain I'd never seen before. "Ms. Montgomery, I never meant to deceive you. I wanted to protect them." "Protect them from what?" "From shame," he whispered. "From rejection. From the kind of pain they've already suffered too much of." My heart was pounding. "Derek, who are they?" He took a shuddering breath. "The woman's name is Sarah. Years ago, she was involved with someone from your family. Someone who abandoned her when she needed him most." The room seemed to tilt. "What do you mean, someone from my family?" "Your brother, Ms. Montgomery. Your late brother James." The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of my desk to keep from falling. James. My charming, reckless, selfish brother who died in a car accident 5 years ago. James, who'd always been the golden boy, the one our parents spoiled, the one who broke hearts and made promises he never kept. "That's impossible," I whispered. "James never mentioned anyone named Sarah." Derek's voice was steady now, like he'd finally found his courage. "She was pregnant when he left her. She begged him to stay, to help her, to at least acknowledge the child. He refused. He told her it wasn't his problem." My chest felt like it was caving in. "The little boy is your nephew, ma'am. His name is Tommy. He's 8 years old, and he's never known his father because James walked away before he was born." The office fell silent except for the sound of my ragged breathing. Images flashed through my mind: James's funeral, the tears I'd shed for my perfect brother, the speeches about what a good man he'd been. Meanwhile, his son was growing up in poverty, and the woman who'd loved him was dying by degrees in a house with faded blue shutters. "And you?" I managed to ask. "How do you fit into this?" Derek's voice cracked slightly. "I met Sarah 3 years ago. She was working 2 jobs trying to pay for her medications and take care of Tommy. She was so proud, never asked for help, but I could see she was drowning. I started helping however I could. Tommy started calling me Dad because he didn't have anyone else." He looked directly at me then, his eyes blazing with protective fury. "I never told you because I was afraid you'd reject them just like James did. Just like your family did when Sarah tried to reach out for help after Tommy was born. They called her a liar and slammed the door in her face. The last piece hit me like a sledgehammer. My family had known. They'd known about Tommy, about Sarah, and they'd turned their backs on them. Just like James had. I was going to be sick. I couldn't breathe. The walls of my office seemed to be closing in as Derek's words echoed in my head. My family knew. They knew about Tommy, about Sarah, and they'd abandoned them. Just like my precious brother James had abandoned them. Get out, I whispered. Derek's face crumpled. Ms. Montgomery, please, Get out. I screamed, my voice cracking with emotion. I need to think. I need to, just go. He left quietly, and I collapsed into my chair, my body shaking with rage and grief. For 5 years, I'd mourned James as a hero. I'd kept his picture on my mantle, talked about his kindness to anyone who would listen, even established a scholarship in his name at the university. Meanwhile, his son was growing up without a father, and his baby mama was slowly dying from an illness she couldn't afford to treat properly. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. I needed answers, and I needed them now. My older sister Victoria answered on the second ring. Erica. How lovely to hear from you. I was just telling Charles about. We need to talk. All of us. Family meeting. Tonight. The ice in my voice must have gotten through to her. Erica, what's wrong? 7 o'clock. The family estate. Don't make me repeat myself. I hung up and made the same call to my other siblings. By the time evening came, they were all gathered in our late parents' formal dining room, looking confused and slightly annoyed at being summoned without explanation. Victoria, perfectly coiffed and dripping in diamonds. My younger brother Robert, checking his Rolex like he had somewhere more important to be. My youngest sister Patricia, filing her nails and looking bored. I stood at the head of the long mahogany table where we'd shared family dinners as children, where we'd celebrated holidays and birthdays, where we'd supposedly learned about loyalty and love. I know about Tommy, I said without preamble. The nail file slipped from Patricia's hand and clattered onto the table. Robert's face went pale. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I don't know what you're talking about, Victoria finally managed. James's son, I said, my voice deadly quiet. The 8-year-old boy who's been living in poverty while we sit here in our mansion counting our money. The child whose mother came begging for help and was turned away like a stray dog. Robert found his voice first. Erica, you don't understand. That woman was a gold digger. She was trying to trap James with a baby that probably wasn't even his. The rage that had been building inside me for hours finally exploded. Probably wasn't his? Have you seen him, Robert? Have you looked at that little boy's face? He looks exactly like James did at that age. Exactly like our family photos hanging on these walls. Patricia jumped. Victoria clutched her pearls. But I wasn't finished. 8 years, I continued, pacing around the table like a caged predator. 8 years that child has lived without knowing his father's family. 8 years his mother has struggled alone while we lived in luxury. 8 years we could have helped them, supported them, given that boy the life he deserved as a Montgomery. Now wait just a minute, Victoria snapped, recovering some of her composure. Even if that child is James's, and I'm not saying he is, we have no obligation to that woman. James made his choice. James was a coward and a liar. I slammed my hand down on the table, making the china rattle. And apparently, so are all of you. Robert stood up, his face flushed with anger. How dare you come in here and attack us? We protected this family's reputation. Do you know what it would have done to James's memory if word got out that he'd fathered a bastard child? His memory? I laughed bitterly. His memory of what? Being a selfish, irresponsible man who abandoned his own flesh and blood? Maybe his memory deserves to be tarnished. The room erupted in shouting. Victoria accused me of being hysterical. Patricia claimed I was having some kind of breakdown. Robert threatened to cut me out of family business decisions. But I was done caring about their opinions. Here's what's going to happen, I said when the noise died down. I'm bringing Tommy and Sarah into my home. I'm going to take care of them like family should. And if any of you have a problem with that, you can kiss my inheritance goodbye. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria recovered first, her voice dripping with venom. Erica, if you do this, you'll be on your own. We won't support this madness. I smiled coldly. I've been on my own since I built my first company. I don't need your support. But Tommy needs mine. I turned and walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Derek, my driver, has been the only one with enough decency to help them all these years. While we were playing happy family and pretending James was a saint, Derek was being the father and protector that child needed. He's shown more character than any of us. I left them sitting in stunned silence, their perfect world of denial finally cracking apart. But bringing Tommy and Sarah home would prove to be just the beginning of the war I was about to fight. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I knew what I had to do, and I knew it was going to cost me everything my siblings thought mattered. But looking at myself in the mirror, I realized that everything they valued, reputation, appearances, social standing, had never mattered to me anyway. I called Derek at 7 a.m. Bring me to Sarah's house. Today. Now. Ms. Montgomery, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. An hour later, I stood on the cracked concrete steps of that little house with the faded blue shutters, my heart pounding with nervousness and determination. When Sarah opened the door, she looked even frighlier than she had through the window. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Clearly Derek had described me to her. Ms. Montgomery, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Derek didn't tell me you were coming. May I come in? She stepped aside, her movements careful and pained. The inside of the house was small but spotlessly clean. Mismatched furniture arranged with care, children's drawings taped to the walls, the smell of soup cooking on an old stove. It was a home filled with love despite having so little money. Tommy peeked around the corner, his bright eyes curious. When he saw me, he ran to Derek and wrapped his arms around his legs. The resemblance to James was so strong it took my breath away. The same thick dark hair, the same mischievous smile, the same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. Tommy, I said softly, kneeling down to his level. My name is Erica. I'm your daddy's sister. His eyes went wide. My daddy? Derek said my daddy went to heaven before I was born. I felt Derek tense beside me, but I pressed on. He did go to heaven, sweetheart. But before he went, he was my little brother, just like you might want a little brother someday. And that makes you my nephew. Sarah sank into a worn chair, tears streaming down her face. Ms. Montgomery, I never wanted to cause trouble for your family. I tried to reach out years ago, but... I know, I said, standing and taking her thin hands in mine. And I'm here to make it right. Over the next hour, I laid out my plan. Sarah and Tommy would move into my mansion immediately. Sarah would have access to the best medical care money could buy. Tommy would attend the finest private school in Atlanta. They would be family, openly and without shame. I can't accept charity, Sarah said, her pride still intact despite everything she'd endured. It's not charity. It's what should have happened 8 years ago when Tommy was born. It's what family does. But even as we talked, I knew the real battle was just beginning. That afternoon, my phone started ringing. First Victoria, then Robert, then Patricia. Word was already spreading through Atlanta's high society about my visit to the poor part of town. Erica, people are talking, Victoria hissed over the phone. Margaret saw you driving through East Atlanta today. She's asking questions. Let her ask, I replied. Soon she'll have all the answers she wants. The gossip mill went into overdrive when the moving trucks arrived at Sarah's house the next morning. By evening, the story had spread through every country club, charity board, and society gathering in the city. The rumors ranged from accurate to absurd. Erica Montgomery had lost her mind, she was being scammed by con artists, she was having an affair with her driver, she was adopting random children to get attention. The truth, when it finally came out, was somehow more scandalous than any of the rumors. That Sunday, I walked into Peachtree Presbyterian Church with Sarah on one arm and Tommy holding my other hand. Derek followed respectfully behind us. The sanctuary, which had been buzzing with pre-service chatter, fell completely silent as we made our way to the Montgomery family pew. You could have heard a pin drop as I helped Sarah sit down, then pulled Tommy onto my lap. The weight of hundreds of stares pressed down on us, but I kept my chin high. Tommy looked around with wide eyes at the beautiful stained glass windows and whispered, "Aunt Erica, this place is like a castle." "Yes, sweetheart," I whispered back. "And you belong here just as much as anyone else." But not everyone agreed. As we left church that morning, I overheard the whispers that followed us: embarrassing, disgraceful, poor Erica has lost her mind. The war for Tommy's place in our family was about to begin in earnest, and I was ready to fight every battle necessary to win it. The backlash was swift and brutal. Within a week of bringing Sarah and Tommy home, Atlanta's elite had turned my life into a spectacle. At the charity gala for the Children's Hospital, an event I'd chaired for 3 years, the whispers followed me everywhere. "There she is," I heard Margaret Whitman hiss to her circle of friends. "Playing house with her driver's girlfriend and some random child. It's pathetic." "I heard the woman is dying and Erica thinks adopting the boy will make her look like a saint," another voice added. "More likely her driver is manipulating her. Everyone knows grief makes wealthy widows easy targets." I turned around, my smile sharp as a blade. "Ladies, if you have something to say about my family, please say it to my face." The group scattered like startled birds, but the damage was done. The rumors grew more vicious by the day. Society pages ran thinly veiled articles about wealthy widow syndrome and fortune hunters who prey on lonely heiresses. Some had the audacity to suggest Derek had orchestrated the entire situation to get access to my wealth. The worst part? My own siblings were feeding the gossip mill. I discovered this when my business partner Claire pulled me aside at a board meeting. "Erica, I need to ask you directly. Victoria called me yesterday. She's concerned about your judgment lately, and frankly, so am I. Are you sure you're thinking clearly about this situation with your driver?" My blood ran cold. "What exactly did Victoria tell you?" "That you're being manipulated. That this Derek person has been planning this con for years. That the sick woman might not even be who she claims to be." I excused myself from the meeting and drove straight to Victoria's house in Buckhead. I found her hosting her weekly bridge club, surrounded by the kind of women who considered gossip an art form. "We need to talk," I announced, not caring that I was interrupting their game. Victoria's face went white, but she maintained her composure. "Ladies, could you excuse us for a moment?" When we were alone, I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You've been spreading lies about Derek. About Sarah and Tommy. Your own nephew." "I've been protecting this family's reputation," she shot back. "Someone has to show some sense around here." "By destroying the reputation of the one man who showed more loyalty to our family than we showed ourselves?" "Oh please, Erica. Wake up. That man has been playing the long game. 3 years he's been studying you, learning your weaknesses, waiting for the right moment to spring his trap. And you walked right into it." The accusation hit me like a slap. Not because I believed it, but because I realized how it must look to the outside world. A wealthy widow, childless and lonely, suddenly taking in her driver's family. The optics were terrible. But then I remembered Tommy's laughter echoing through my mansion. I remembered Sarah's tears of gratitude when the oncologist gave her a treatment plan that actually offered hope. I remembered Derek's face when Tommy hugged him and called him Dad. "You're wrong," I said quietly. "About all of it." That night, I confronted Derek directly. I found him in the kitchen helping Tommy with homework while Sarah rested on the couch nearby. "Derek, we need to talk." He looked up from Tommy's math worksheet, immediately reading the tension in my voice. "Tommy, why don't you go show your mom how well you did on this problem?" When we were alone, I crossed my arms. "People are saying you planned this. That you've been manipulating me from the beginning. That you found Sarah and Tommy and convinced them to help you con me out of my money." Derek's face went through a series of emotions: hurt, anger, and finally resignation. "Is that what you think?" "I think I need to hear the truth. All of it. No more protecting anyone's feelings." He sat down heavily at the kitchen table, suddenly looking older than his 42 years. "The truth is complicated, Ms. Montgomery. But you deserve to know it all." He took a deep breath. "I didn't find Sarah by accident. I was looking for her." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I mean I knew who she was before I took the job with you. I knew about Tommy. I knew James had abandoned them." His voice was steady but filled with pain. Because James Montgomery wasn't the only one who walked away from his responsibilities. The room seemed to tilt. "Derek, what are you saying?" He looked directly at me then, his eyes filled with a shame I'd never seen before. "My real name isn't Derek Williams, Ms. Montgomery. It's Derek Montgomery. James was my half-brother." The words hit me like a lightning bolt. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter to keep from falling as Derek's confession shattered everything I thought I knew about my driver, my family, and the past 3 years. "Your half-brother," I whispered, staring at him with new eyes. Now that I looked closely, I could see it: the Montgomery jawline, the way he carried himself, the quiet dignity that ran in our bloodline. "My mother worked for your father's law firm 30 years ago," Derek continued, his voice heavy with old pain. "She was his secretary. They had an affair, and I was the result. When she told him she was pregnant, he paid her to disappear and keep quiet. She raised me alone, working 3 jobs to make ends meet." I sank into a chair, my mind reeling. "Why didn't you ever tell us? Tell me." "Because I was angry," he admitted. "I grew up knowing I had a family that didn't want me. I watched from a distance as James got everything: the Montgomery name, the inheritance, the respect, while I struggled to pay for community college. When I heard he'd done the same thing to Sarah that our father did to my mother, I had to do something." "So you applied to be my driver?" He nodded. "I thought I'd expose him somehow. Get revenge for what the Montgomery family had done to me and my mother. But then I met Sarah and Tommy, and I saw they weren't weapons to use against you. They were just people who needed help. And you." He looked at me with something that might have been affection. "You weren't what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone cold. Cruel. Like your father was to my mother. Like James was to Sarah. But you were different. You worked hard, treated your employees with respect, built something meaningful. I started to admire you despite myself." The irony wasn't lost on me. While I'd been mourning the brother who'd abandoned his son, I'd been building a relationship with the brother I'd never known existed. "Derek," I said slowly, "you're my half-brother. Tommy is my nephew. Sarah is my sister-in-law. We're family." Tears filled his eyes. "I never dared hope you'd see it that way. And I never dared hope I'd find the family I thought I'd lost." Over the following weeks, the truth came out in pieces. Derek showed me letters his mother had kept, photos of him as a child that could have been Montgomery family portraits, medical records that proved paternity beyond any doubt. The scandal that rocked Atlanta's high society was nothing compared to the scandal that rocked my own family. My siblings initially tried to deny Derek's parentage, just as they tried to deny Tommy's. But DNA tests don't lie, and neither do decades of documentation. Victoria, Robert, and Patricia found themselves facing not just one illegitimate family member, but two. The final confrontation happened at the family estate, where 3 generations of Montgomerys had made decisions that shaped our legacy. This time, it was different. "This ends now," I announced to my assembled siblings. "Derek is our brother. Tommy is our nephew. Sarah is part of this family. Anyone who can't accept that can consider themselves no longer part of mine." Victoria's face was stone. "You're destroying everything our parents built." "No," Derek said, speaking up for the first time in these family meetings. "I'm revealing what they really built. A legacy of abandoning the people who needed us most." In the end, Patricia surprised us all by accepting Derek and Tommy with genuine warmth. Robert took longer but eventually came around when he saw how brilliant Tommy was and how much potential Derek had in business. Victoria held out the longest, but even she couldn't resist Tommy's infectious laughter and Derek's quiet strength forever. 6 months later, I stood in the same church where I'd once been whispered about, watching Derek walk Sarah down the aisle. She'd beaten her illness against all odds, and their wedding was a celebration of love, family, and second chances. Tommy, in his role as ring-bearer, grinned at me from the altar. "Aunt Erica," he'd asked me the night before, "does this mean Derek is officially my dad now?" "Sweetheart," I told him, "Derek has been your dad since the day he decided to take care of you. The wedding just makes it official." As I watched my half-brother marry the woman he'd protected and loved, as I saw my nephew beam with joy, I realized something profound. Sometimes the family you choose is more real than the family you're born into. The Montgomery name would survive, but it would mean something different now. It would mean loyalty, love, and the courage to do what's right even when society judges you for it. And Derek? He never drove for me again. He became my business partner instead, bringing a wisdom and integrity to our empire that transformed everything we touched. The scandal died down eventually, as scandals always do. But the family we built from the ashes of secrets and shame, that was forever.